Hello and welcome to the Culture Swally, a podcast dedicated to Scottish news and pop culture. My name is Nicky, and I'm joined, as always, by the man who shalt have a fishy on a little dishy when the boat comes in. It's Greg. How are you today, Greg?
I can tell you're pleased with that one.
You know something? I was a little bit pleased. I wasn't massively pleased, but I was okay. I mean, it was either that or I was going to say that you were also scared the first time Big Annie showed her growler, but I didn't think that would be the most appropriate, so I went with fishy and a little dishy. But yeah, I was quite pleased with that. How are you today? All good?
Very well, yeah. No, pretty good. I'm home alone for a couple of weeks because my family are back in Glasgow, and I'm going to join them a week on Wednesday, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, no, I've been exercising, I've been off the booze, I've been eating well and sleeping well.
Jesus.
And I feel sort of clear-headed. I feel quite serene. I haven't called a paper towel dispenser a cunt this week, which is a positive. So yeah. How are you? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm all good. So you haven't been ordering Little Caesars pizza and dancing around and putting aftershave on your face after shaving and screaming in the mirror when, you know, that's the normal things you do when you're home alone.
Yeah, under normal circumstances, that's what I would do. But at the age, I'm going to be 45 next week, so it's about time I started acting like it.
I'm all good, thank you. I am also home alone. My wife is away for the weekend. She's off to Cologne to see some friends, so I'm also home alone. But yeah, I'm not, well, much like you, I'm off the booze as well and exercising. And yeah, I've been, well, not a lot actually. What will I be doing this weekend? Probably editing the podcast. I'll go for a run, and yeah, that's about it. Nothing hugely exciting, to be perfectly honest.
I sort of ran / walked / stumbled 3 kilometres a couple of days this week, early in the morning. Obviously it's still hot as balls. It's like still like in the mid-30s and humid. Literally got in the house looking like I'd been swimming in my clothes. But yeah, it's getting a bit easier. The old Apple Watch, quite a good motivator, just to virtue of the fact that it tells you how far you've gone, how many steps you've done, makes you feel quite positive. So yeah. I joined 13 weeks ago, I joined a running club. Right. And it was a kind of beginner's running club. I've been running for like a year and a half or so, but I just thought, let's go back to basics and see if I'm doing something wrong, because I was never really improving time-wise and stuff, but I was always feeling good and I loved running. And to be fair, I have learnt a lot over those 13 weeks and I have improved a lot. But there was this girl in my class, and anytime, I'll be honest, it seemed like I was a bit of a teacher's pet. Because anytime we were doing, like he said, like the first lesson, go and sprint over there. So I sprinted and I like beat everybody and then turned around and the girl came running up and she's like, oh, what happened to you? And to be fair, the teacher was like, okay, that's not how you should run. Because, you know, but I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm learning here. This is what I've paid for this class for. And then every week, like a couple of weeks later, he's like, okay, this is how you should lace your trainers. But he looks at me and he goes, oh, you've already got your trainers laced that way. I'm like, well, yeah, because I fucking watched YouTube videos of how you should lace running trainers. I'm not a fucking idiot. And it seemed every week, you know, this one week we did exercises. If you're meant to run this certain distance in big leaps, and you should take like 11 leaps to do this distance. And, you know, at the end, he's like, who did it? And I was like, yeah, I did it in 11. And, you know, this girl's like, oh, because she did it in fucking 22 or something. Like, it's just constant. And I'm like, well, why are you being a fucking dick about this? You know, and every week we turn up and we had these homework exercises to do. Supposed to run like twice a week and do these exercises. And every week she would turn up and she would say to me, did you do your homework? I'm like, yeah, I did. Yeah, because I've paid for the fucking course. I'm doing the homework. I'm here to learn. Did you do it? No. I'm like, well, why are you fucking, you know, being such a dick about this? So, of course, we had the final lesson last week. We were meant to run, for, I think it was like 45 minutes. We meant to run for, like, non-stop and run around. So, of course, I did it no bother. No, I'm saying like I didn't know bother, but you know what I mean? I didn't know bother because I've been doing the plan, I've been doing the course. I've listened to what
the teacher was telling me, I used to get a pain in my left heel when I ran. And he kind of, motioned about how to do things. And I haven't had pain since. There was one lesson, he said, how many pairs of running shoes do you have? And everyone said 1. And I was like, I've got 3. And he was like, why? And I was like, because I rotate them. Because you're not meant to run on the same pair of shoes every day. And he's like, yes, that's a good answer. Everyone should have 3 pairs of shoes. She rolled her eyes at me at that as well. So I was quite happy that I did the 45 minutes and she fucking stopped about halfway through. Yeah. So, I was like, well, there you go. There's a fucking lesson for you. Anyway, that's enough ranting about her.
Do you think somebody's perhaps bought her the club as a gift and she's felt sort of duty bound to...
No, but that's the thing. Like, when at the end of the lesson, she's asking everyone, are you doing the next course? Because the next course is like the advanced course. Right. And I was like, well, no, I'm not going to do the next one because it's summer. Like, it's too hot. I'm going to run myself. And I do. I run like 3-4 mornings a week. Like, I'll go out for a run. I'm like, no, but I'll maybe join the one in September, October, which is the next one. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I have to join it because if I don't, I won't run. Like, well, that's your problem. Like, so you only run fucking one night a week. And Jesus. Anyway, that's enough about that. So yes. So that's my news. So
well, speaking of fitness, I've been watching the last couple of days. I don't know if you've seen any of it, but it's absolutely brilliant. Netflix has got a documentary series about American gladiators.
I did not know about this. No, mate, I did not know about this.
It's fucking brilliant. It's so good.
Oh, I know what I'm doing tonight now. Fantastic. Okay, so that's all we have time for on this, Swally. If you'd like to get in touch with us, oh my God, American Gladiators. Yeah. Oh, that's fucking brilliant. I remember that used to be on at like 1 a.m. on a Saturday night, and I used to always watch it. I mean, that was around about the time I was just going out to parties, and I would come in a bit boozy and watch American Gladiators. Yeah. It was fucking brilliant.
Class. There was something, it had a wee bit of an edge on the British, which was just called Gladiators. Yeah, it's really good. I'll be really enjoying it. They've got a few of the OGs there, Gemini, Nitro, Ice, Laser, and a few other, Tower. Not great names, but yeah, they all speak fondly. But it's exactly what you expect. when they take you behind the scenes. You're like, I knew all this was happening, but I'm loving hearing about it anyway.
So lots of steroids and shagging.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly that.
Magic. I know what I will be doing tonight then. Thank you very much. Right. Well, let's get on with things so I can go watch American Gladiators on Netflix. Okay, Greg, shall we have a look at what's been happening in Scotland over the last couple of weeks?
Cue the jingle.
Hello, this is the Outer Hebrides Broadcasting Corporation, and here is what's been going on in the news.
Okay, Greg, so why don't you tell us what you've seen first this week that you'd like to share with me and our lovely listeners?
So my first story comes from the Scottish Sun on the 10th of July. The byline reads, "Rock on, hilarious moment, Scotswoman dedicates Kylie Minogue song to a gate-crashing pigeon and a boozer." Christine honestly, the most Scottish name you can think of. Christine, spelled Chrisisten, McMurday, was hosting karaoke at the Waterloo Bar in Glasgow last Sunday, as she does every week, but this time with an unexpected visitor. The 56-year-old was in the middle of her rendition of Kylie Minogue's Padam Padam, which I had to look up, because I thought this must be like a typo or something. Padam Padam, but there is actually a Kylie song with that name. So she was in the middle of her rendition of the song when she decided to get a trapped pigeon hanging around the pub ceiling involved in the frivolities. The clip shows Christine halfway through her song when she excitedly points out the pigeon and changes the song's lyrics. Instead of Padam Padam, Christine can be heard crooning "Pigeon, pigeon, I hear it and I know," this must be the lyrics to the song, "Pigeon, pigeon, I know you want to take me home, pigeon, and get to know me close." The video pans between Christine pointing upward to the pigeon before the camera person hilariously loses sight of the animal, which had fled from its original perch. The camera swiftly finds the bird again, which is now perched atop a speaker on the wall. nonchalantly staring back at the woman, dedicating an entire song to it. The video was uploaded to social media on Friday with the caption, "One of the best Padam covers I've seen so far," on Instagram. The video has since received 130,000 likes and nearly 1,000 comments. One user wrote, "Peak British culture." Another commented, "He said finally some representation." Another wrote, "Kylie would love this." A fifth replied, "The stars aligned for this fantastic moment." I think taking it a wee bit too far there. Speaking today, Christine said, "I host karaoke every Sunday at 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock on Wacky Wednesday in the Waterloo Bar, Argyle Street. It's the oldest gay bar in Glasgow, dating back to the 1950s. I would take exception to that. I'm not sure there was a lot of gay bars in Glasgow in the 1950s, mainly because it was illegal in the 1950s. She does caveat it with, "I think. It's the oldest gay bar in Glasgow dating back to the 1950s. I think. Because of the heat in Scotland, the doors had been left opened and it just toddled in, but it couldn't find its way back out. As soon as I walked in to do my karaoke gig, everyone was looking up, and then I clocked the pigeon. I had been singing Padam Padam for a couple of weeks, and the LGBTQI plus family all obviously love Kylie." Christine continues, "I started singing the song, and the pigeon, which somebody named Percy, started to fly about. I then automatically changed it to Pigeon Pigeon. We all tried to coo it down. We were throwing tidbits for it like bread, but to no avail. The ceilings in the Waterloo are 20 foot high, so our ladders wouldn't even touch it. The crowd were all cooing and joining in, laughing and singing along. I've sung it numerous times since then, and they demand that I stick to Pigeon Pigeon instead of Padam Padam. The pigeon toddled out the door casually on the Tuesday. 3 days it was in there." Fuck's sake, poor pigeon. I'm going to listen to her singing at it for 3 days. Manageress Alison had called the RSPCA on the Monday, but they said, "Give it another day. It may find its way out." So I think Christine is incorrect with her assertion that the Waterloo Bar is the oldest gay bar in Glasgow. I'm pretty sure that the first gay bar in Glasgow was opened by my old boss when I worked at the Tunnel, Colin Barr, and it was Bennett's on Glassford Street, which I think he opened in the 1970s. But, I will caveat that with, I think, much like Christine did with her claim about the Waterloo Bar.
Did they have a pigeon?
I've never been in Bennett's, so I have no idea.
Okay. What song would you sing to a pigeon if you had a pigeon, you were on karaoke? What would you sing?
If I saw a pigeon, I don't know yet, I guess. Maybe the obvious one would be to sing "Come Fly With Me" by Frank Sinatra, but it's a wee bit too, it's maybe a wee bit too on the nose. What about you? You got something?
Probably more on the nose, but I don't know if the karaoke bar would have the theme tune to Pigeon Street. I mean, honestly, that has to be one of the best themes, the best beginnings of a theme tune of a kids program of that era. It just those first that first bar just lifts you up. If you live on Pigeon Street, here are the people that you could meet. Yeah, it's fucking brilliant. Yeah. I don't know. So this pigeon, I've never heard of that Kylie song either. I'm sure if I'd heard it, I would recognise it maybe. But she decided to just sing to this pigeon.
Yeah.
This poor pigeon had to be subjected, probably terrified.
I know.
I'm just getting flashbacks to the last episode that we did on Scott Squad of the karaoke party, and imagining this rather larger drunken Glaswegian lady singing Pigeon Street to this pigeon.
I don't know. I mean, it's just anything will make the news these days, evidently. If it's on social media, The Sun will give it a few columns on its website.
Yeah, of course. Well, why not? Why not? That's why we've got this podcast, right? To cover the fucking ridiculous stories that come from Scotland.
And God bless them for doing it.
Oh, dear.
Anyway, that was my first story. What's your first one this week?
Well, Greg, my first story comes from the Scottish Sun this week. And it is probably my worst nightmare come to life, and something that I could never do. Never, ever do. A hilarious photo shows a brave Aberdeen fan walking the streets of Glasgow in his stag do, whilst wearing a half-and-half Rangers and Celtic kit. Duncan Hendry was out and about in Glasgow last month when he stumbled across a stag party in the middle of the city. The 25-year-old couldn't believe his eyes when he noticed one of the group supporting a football fashion nightmare. Revealing that he was in fact an Aberdeen fan, the bold groom was clad in a top boasting the green hoops of Celtic and the blue of Rangers in an unholy mix. That's a good pun. I bet he was fucking delighted with himself for that. The two teams have played 436 official derbies. I don't think they have, actually, because I'm pretty sure Rangers died. And so I don't know what the new team have. And then he goes on about some sort of scorelines. He wasn't wearing a retro kit. It was a new Rangers kit. So, yeah, that can't be true. As such, any punter brave or daft enough to sit on the fence to support both teams is likely to be subject to a barrage of abuse from both sets of supporters. An image taken by Duncan as he parted ways after his brief interaction with the stag do shows the groom-to-be in a blue Rangers shorts, white and green Celtic socks, and the cringe-inducing half-and-half shirt. The man, hilariously, appears to be nervously clutching his arms to his body, perhaps in an attempt to try and cover the top he has on display from the curious eyes of locals. Watford Van Duncan shared the image to social media that day with a caption, to the Aberdeen supporter on his stag do, good luck. I don't know if that's a Watford accent. I've no idea what Watford. Elton John's Watford, isn't he? So, to the Aberdeen supporter on his stag do in Glasgow, good luck.
Elton John's voice is much more to the Aberdeen supporter. Ever since he had that throat surgery in the 90s for taking too much cocaine and smoking too many fags, his voice is up. To the Aberdeen supporter.
The post has received over 400 likes and dozens of comments from bewildered football fans. One user wrote, typical Aberdeen fan if you ask me, fuck you, one user. I don't know who you are, but you're a fucking cunt. Another commented, must be a St Mirren fan, lying down to both sides of the old firm. A third joked, who in their right mind goes to Glasgow for a stag do?
I think I take more exception to that than any other comment.
Another person said, it's bad enough having to wear one, let alone both. Speaking today, Duncan said, I was walking to Queen Street Station after a couple of pints and I saw him. I spoke to them briefly, asked which side he actually supported. That's a typical fucking question when you're in Glasgow. And he said they were from Aberdeen. Loads of people were taking photos. And a couple of boys that looked about 10 years old were hurling abuse at him. That's fucking brilliant. That's what I expect from Glasgow. The boy was pretty much a celebrity. Come on, was he? Really? Was he a celebrity or just a target of abuse? I just thought that he was mental for even considering doing it. The latest half-and-half strip seen on the streets of Glasgow is reminiscent for the times a Scottish Sun reporter dared to venture out wearing a similar kit. Next season we will see blah blah blah, load of crap about Celtic and Rangers. So this gives to me like the half and half. It's a fucking great prank. I remember there's an Aberdeen player, Shay Logan, and he had a bit of an altercation with Celtic, and a bit of an altercation. One of the Celtic players said racist abuse to him, and it went to court. And like tribunal, the player got banned. So for that reason, Celtic hated Shay Logan and always used to boo him. And Shay Logan fucking hated Celtic as a kind of like a kind of retribution to it. So when Shay Logan had his stag do, his mates made him wear a full Celtic strip on his stag do with, I think, Brown 8 on the back because he fucking hated Scott Brown really with a passion. So I could see that's a funny joke. Fucking hell, walking round Glasgow with a half and half strip. I mean, surely people would take it as a joke, but there's got to be some people there that wouldn't take it as a joke.
I think probably more people wouldn't take it as a joke than would, if I'm honest.
Oh, really? You think so?
Yeah, I think it depends on a number of factors. It depends on the time of the day of the week, and obviously the kind of pubs that you're straying into. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm saying that. I think you're probably right. Actually, I think probably people would probably go up and ask them, what side do you really support? And there's no real, for an Aberdeen fan, there's no right answer. That's not really in Glasgow. But I don't know. I mean, these sort of, I never understood. I was always really thankful that on my stag do, when we all went to Barcelona, nobody ever fucking made me go about like in a bloody tartan miniskirt or some nonsense. Do you know what I mean? I thought remember at the time I was getting married, because quite a few people in my sort of circle of friends got married. Remember at the same time I went to quite a lot of stag do's over that sort of 2-year period, and the only sort of traditional thing that we did was the one that I was on with you in Madrid when our mutual friend's stag do, and when he went off to his bed a few hours before us. We came back, you were sharing a room with him, and you knelt on his head while his friends, I'm holding up the quotation mark fingers, covered him in like shaving foam and all kinds of shite. But that was just like a one-off humiliation. It wasn't like a protracted night on the town humiliation.
Well, the traditional one in Aberdeen, I don't know if it was just an Aberdeen thing, is a blackening. Yeah. And my brother-in-law got that before his wedding, and he got stripped naked, tied to a lamppost on a roundabout, in a busy roundabout in Aberdeen, covered in, it was like tar, but it wouldn't have been tar, but it was like a black substance, right, and covered in feathers, and just left there for a couple of hours. And that was the traditional kind of stag do jape in Aberdeen back in the kind of 90s, amongst the oil workers. So yeah, it was called a blackening, and it was quite probably not quite politically correct nowadays,
to call it the blackening. I know a better name for it, but
definitely not.
I do remember the concept of the blackening, because when I moved to Aberdeenshire, I used to get the bus to school, and whenever it was somebody's birthday on the bus, whenever we got off the bus back at home, that person would be pelted with flowers and eggs, and it was called the blackening. It was called the blackening, so that makes it sound like some sort of Blumhouse horror film, or some dreadful 70s sitcom on ITV, one or the other. But it was and I was always really thankful that my birthday was deep in the summer, so I was never in the school bus. Because for some reason, if it was your birthday in the summer, if you weren't at school, nobody did anything like that to you. But if your birthday was in term time, like some people got off the bus and just fucking sprint home. And then there was always like 2 or 3 people who were proponents of doing the blackening. And they'd always be really pissed off, and really, they always felt really cheated if the person whose birthday it was managed to run away without getting covered in shite. And then they always felt that the person who just stood there and took it was a good sport. But it never happened to me, and I hope it never does.
I've never understood this half and half thing. I know this is a joke, kind of wearing a half and half Rangers and Celtic top, but you see it all the time. Of a couple of months ago, there was the FA Cup final, Man United versus Man City, and there was a post on the BBC about this flag seller and all the scarves and stuff he was selling. And one of them was like half and half scarf. Yeah. Man United, Man City. And I'm like, who the fuck is going to buy that? I mean, obviously a tourist. An Arab that's, going to buy that. I dissuaded from saying any nationality, but a tourist would buy that because I guess it's a memento. They maybe have no kind of stake in the game. They're just going to an FA Cup final. I mean, I guess if I was going to... No, I would never would. Like, I'm thinking if I was going to like a Spanish Cup final, Barca versus Real Madrid, would I buy a half and half scarf? No, of course I wouldn't. And I've never understood that. However, I did think about this earlier today because I was thinking about this point that I was going to bring up. And I was like, mind you, I think it's maybe acceptable if it's something like a massive occasion, like let's take the opening game, France 98, Scotland, Brazil, a half and half scarf there. It's acceptable because it's kind of a friendly occasion. It's, it's not friendly, it's the World Cup game, but
the fans are
it's
friendly,
kind of
with each other. Yeah,
so it's okay. But then to have like a fucking Man United, Man City, or like a Man U, Liverpool, or, I don't know if I've ever seen a Rangers Celtic half and half scarf. I'm sure it exists. But it's just bizarre for me. I would never buy like an Aberdeen with someone scarf, but potentially I maybe would have bought a Scotland Brazil scarf because it's a memento, like fuck, this will commemorate this occasion, I was here, it's once in a lifetime type thing. But I'm never going to buy a fucking Aberdeen St Mirren half and half scarf. Like, I don't understand this logic, but you're right, it's tourists. And
I think every time somebody makes a Celtic and Rangers half and half strip, every time someone does that, the Loudon Bar has to reapply for its liquor license. It's like Peter Pan. Every time somebody says they don't believe in fairies, like a fairy dies somewhere.
Never mind. Oh well. So yes, that is my tale of the half and half stag do in Glasgow. What else have you seen this week, Greg?
Okay, so my next story, shockingly, comes from the Scottish Sun. The headline reads, Side wash. Petty Scots slammed in neighbourhood row for power washing one side of shared steps. Heather Gray was shocked when she noticed that disgruntled Frank Tonner had jet washed only the left side of the concrete steps outside their homes. There's a picture of the steps, so I don't know how many steps there are. It's one of these ones that I guess it goes up to like a sort of terraced house situation. But yeah, Frank has perfectly jet washed his own side of the steps are perhaps 1.5 meters wide. But with some precision, he's jet washed one half. So the feuding pair from Bo'ness near Falkirk are believed to have been at loggerheads for years, with Heather claiming that Frank has been petty with her ever since she moved in. But Frank decided to up the ante this week after saying he was fed up with the mess being left in Heather's garden. Images show the stone steps leading up to the pair's respective homes that are being power washed on one side with an immaculate divide right down the middle. Heather took to social media on Sunday to share the images after discovering the petty act upon her return home. She said, anyone else got neighbours petty enough to only power wash one half of the shared steps? But within hours, Frank, who's 60, and Frank, they should know better, hit back with allegations against Heather saying, hi, I am that neighbour. If they would have come and asked, I had to stop for the rain. I also take pride in my garden, unlike others. We loved sitting outside, but that has now stopped because we can only smell weed all day, every day. However, Heather then hit back, adding, I appreciate your comments, and I recognise I may have jumped to conclusions, but you can hardly blame me given the sheer amount of pettiness over the years. Plus, the split down the middle seems pretty intentional. I'm compelled to agree with Heather on that point. She goes on to say, you say I could have just come and talked to you, but then why haven't you? I even put a note through your door the first week I moved in and messaged Sam, don't know who Sam is, and they don't seem compelled to tell us, because no one wants to have a bad relationship with their neighbours. I even knew yous before I moved in, for fuck's sake, but you just totally ignored me and were constantly childish from the very start. I would genuinely love to know why, because it's perplexed me for years and felt very unfair. Frank then later wrote a post of his own claiming, again, hi, I'm the petty neighbour who had to stop for the rain. If they'd asked instead of posting this, they should think about their, he spelt their, There. It's a shame. To think about their own garden mess, which has been there, spelt it correctly that time, at their front door for months. Perhaps if they weren't smoking weed all day every day. I also have photos, but I'm not sad enough to post them. Seemingly bewildered by Frank's ongoing allegations, Heather responded again, replying, we're really giving everyone a show now. I've already replied to you in the other post, but I will throw in that we both have full-time jobs, so your comment is a bit dramatic. Speaking to the Scottish Sun, Heather said, my neighbour has accused us of smoking weed all day every day, and whilst my partner may be partial to a smoke in his shed, at the end of the day, his comment blows it way out of proportion. I feel bad for posting this as I genuinely didn't want him to be directly attacked. Honestly, I didn't expect him to see it or comment on it. The post has since received over 700 likes and dozens of comments from users split in their opinions about the pair's feud. Kelly Patterson, whoever the fuck that is, said, there's two sides to every story, I guess. Where we think it's petty, it could be a build-up of years of doing it all the time and the neighbours not doing their fair share. I'd get pissed off too, but that's just speculation. I don't know the circumstances. Emma Jackson Brown wrote, surely it took longer to do a straight line than just do them all. I mean, you're right. Greg McConnell said, crazy how that rain stopped you right at the time you had done exactly half of the steps. And then Samantha Riddell commented, I'm pretty impressed how straight the line is. It looks exactly half. So yeah, that's yet another pointless dispute between neighbours in in modern Scotland.
I've seen this photo, and he has 100%, without a doubt, put down tarpaulin or masking tape to make the most perfect line you could ever see in terms of power washing. Because if you're power washing, there's splashes go everywhere, so there'd be little bits of her side that would be clean. He has 100% put down tarpaulin or something to be a dick. Well, I don't know. Is it petty, or is it, I don't know. If he's got a problem with them, if they're smoking weed all day, every day.
In the shed.
Smoke weed every day. Is there an issue? He's obviously got a grievance with them, so this is how he's decided to... Is it passive-aggressive? Yes. Is it funny? Yes. Is it... has it annoyed her? Yes. So it's ticked all the boxes for this 60-year-old gentleman. He's achieved exactly what he wants. And now he's got national fame.
The thing that struck me about the picture is that whilst the line is absolutely with precision, an immaculate line, it seems like that it's not quite even, because on the other, the half that he's power washed looks a little bit smaller than the half that he hasn't. It's not like dead down the middle. I always find it quite funny when people who are at an age where you would expect can rise above pettiness resort to something like this.
You've got nothing better to do, so why not resort to pettiness?
People don't retire when they're 60. He's not out at work every day.
Well, that's true, but we don't know his backstory. Maybe he's just embroiled with sort of bitterness about something and just decides to take it out on his neighbour.
Maybe. I don't know. I just find it bewildering. Surely there's the fact that like a tub of Lurpak spreadable costs almost £5 now. It's perhaps a more contentious issue than your neighbour being mildly irritating by smoking weed in their shed.
Have you ever had neighbours that you've been pissed off with?
No, I've been quite lucky in that sense. I've never... I'm just trying to think. Well, when I lived in Aberdeen, actually, there was a guy who lived next door to my flat in the Galleria, and he was a policeman, or he certainly claimed to be a policeman anyway. And the first night that we'd moved in, my flatmate Dale and I had a few pals round, and it was pretty noisy, and it went until, I remember like the sun was coming up when he came and knocked on the door and with completely indelicately told us to shut the fuck up because he had his work in the morning, and I was like, fair enough. But then it was just... Every time we had a party, I would go around and say that we're going to have a party, just so you know. And sometimes, the funny thing was, he had a girlfriend who he wouldn't let smoke in the flat. So you remember that flat had a kind of courtyard outside. So sometimes I would come in and she'd be sitting on the little sort of this kind of bench having a smoke. So I would sit and have a chat to her and have a cigarette myself and stuff. So sometimes she would come, if we had people round and we're having some drinks, I would never like invite her, I'd never number or anything, but if I saw her, I'd be like, you should come in have a drink if you want. And she would like stay for hours and hours and hours and get fucking hammered. And he used to come round and ask if she was there, and I would say, yeah, she's here, come on in. No, I'm not coming in. And then she'd sort of gingerly, with her tail between her legs, go home. But you could tell that she wanted to stay. But yeah, he was like probably the closest thing to a pain in the arse neighbour. What about you? You've had pain in the arse flatmates before, haven't you? You've been in Norwich.
Well, yeah, Norwich was a different story. I mean, yeah, a couple of pain in the arse flatmates. That's maybe it's quite a dark tale for one of those. The worst I can think of that is funny to tell on the podcast is, when I was in Dubai, moved into my new house, my new villa, and was quite happy with it. And then my next door neighbour was fine for the first few days, and then I realised that every Friday, Saturday night he would have a fucking massive party. But this party started at 3-4 a.m. And it was, I remember saying to you, the music was very of a kind of
Arabic techno
kind of, yeah, basically. Yeah. And I remember saying to you, I wouldn't mind, if it was decent music. And I remember you texting me, I think, mate, at 4 o'clock in the morning, if they're playing the Manic Street Preachers, you're still going to be pretty pissed off. And I was like, yeah, you've got a good point there. He used to play basically fucking Arabic techno or music. And I'm not joking, my whole wall shook when he played this. However, when I first moved in, he had already said that he had a neighbour with the neighbour. He had a disagreement with the neighbour one down from me, who had obviously complained to him many times. So I never said a word to this guy next door about it because I didn't want him to think I was blaming him. So I would just secretly go off and nip out and switch off his power because I knew how to switch off the power in the villas. You could do it from outside, so I'd switch off his power. And it would take them a good half hour to realise, and by that time the party's over because you've had 20 minutes out of power. Yeah. Or I would call security. Quite a few times I called the police on him, and that shut him down. And when I saw him when he was moving out, he was like, yeah, I can't live here anymore. Like, it's the guy 2 doors down, he keeps calling the police and stuff. Like, no, I was like, oh, what a dick. I can't believe that. That's so terrible. I've never really heard anything. But yeah, he was such a fucking dick. But then I used to take my own back because he would play this music. So then I'd wait, and then at like about 9-10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, I would put on like Steel Panther or like Metallica full volume and then go out and play a round of golf for 4 hours. So I'm like, well, gets my own back, really. And I don't know if it made any difference because he might have slept through it, but it kind of made me feel better anyway. Didn't
you also climb into his house one day and swap your broken drawer for his unbroken drawer?
I was just about to say, I don't know if he would have got his deposit back for that house because I did break into his house and steal his drawer and some of his shower fixtures. So, yeah. So I don't know if he would have got his deposit back. So, who was the winner there? Maybe me. But I had to listen to a lot of Arabic music. But never mind. That's petty neighbours. Who needs them?
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody does.
Exactly. Okay, well, that was my second and final story for this episode. What's your next one?
Right. This is kind of a 2-part story I have, Greg. And it's a story I read a couple of weeks ago, and it's been an update. So I'm going to try and explain this as best I can without having to jump back and forth with 2 stories. So this is from the Daily Record, so you'll be happy to know we don't have a full Scottish Sun episode this week. So the original story was about this guy, Dan Knight, who lost his provisional driving licence when he was on holiday in Magaluf. And he was really upset that he'd lost it because it was his only form of ID. And I guess he must have a fucking passport if he's gone to Magaluf. But it was kind of his only form of ID, so he was upset about it. And he got a letter from this girl called Kirsty in Glasgow, and who had sent him his provisional driving licence, and it said, "Hello, I found this outside this club in Magaluf on Tuesday. I checked the hotel you were staying at, and because it was obviously dropped outside the hotel, but they said you weren't staying there. I checked social media, but I couldn't find you. So I brought it home to Scotland and sent it to you when I got home, because she'd obviously found his, I think the address is in the driving licence. Hope this finds you, Kirsty." So my theory about this is because the gentleman in question, Dan, had put a plea out in the Daily Record and media to say, can I find this girl, Kirsty, because she's done this good thing and retrieved my license, and it's a good thing. Now, as soon as I read the original article, I was like, right, Dan, you're 21. He's not the best looking lad. He's seen this girl, Kirsty, has retrieved his license, sent it to him, gotten all that bother. He's thinking, I'm going to get a ride out of Kirsty. Right? That's my first thought, because he's like, right, I didn't get a shag in Magaluf. I'm going to get a ride out of Kirsty that's found my licence. She's obviously seen my picture on the provisional driving licence, so she's obviously keen. She sent this back. Anyway, so the article from the Daily Record. Woman hailed soundest in the world after reunited lad with lost Magaluf ID. So a mystery Scotswoman who reunited a student with ID he lost in Magaluf has come forward as a mum from Glasgow. Sheffield lad Dan Knight, 21, had flown to Magaluf for a holiday with his pals, but he was left gutted when he lost his provisional licence 1,000 miles away from home. But the history and politics student was left speechless when he got a handwritten letter from Kirsty in Scotland, and his ID showed up at the door. In his efforts to find the Good Samaritan, Kirsty, Dan got in touch with the Record to trace this person, who he dubbed the soundest girl in the world. Just days after reading Dan's appeal in the paper, Kirsty McIntyre has come forward to tell Dan she is glad his ideas was turned to the rightful owner. The 47-year-old from Glasgow said, "It made my week. Dan's story, I was gobsmacked. I can't believe he has gone to all this effort to trying to find me, and I just want to say thank you. I'm just glad it got back to him." Kirsty found Dan's ID outside the hotel while she was on holiday with her partner. She continued, "I found it outside the HM Martinique Hotel where we were staying. I could see it was a provisional license and I thought, that'll be a nightmare if he's got his test booked. We looked all over social media before posting, so I was thrilled to see it got back to him. My own daughter is 17. There you go, you might get a chance with our daughter." And I'd like to think if she ever loses her license, someone would return it to her. It's such an inconvenience. So it was just so easy for us to just pop it in an envelope with a stamp and send it back to him. Speaking last week, Dan said, I returned home and I've got my ID a few days later. I couldn't stop grinning when I read Kirsty's note. It was sent with a first-class stamp as well. Oh, so you thought you'd caught a rich Scottish girl there, didn't you, Dan? It's such a lovely gesture. No one knows who she is, and I'm desperate to say thank you. Kirsty, whoever you are, you're the soundest girl in the world. After Kirsty came forward, Dan said, it's lovely that to this day someone will go to that level and that someone is so nice. The fact that someone out in Magaluf would go so far as to take it home, look after it and post it is really special. So I'd like to say thanks again. I'm very grateful.
So
that's it. And so he's gone from, when he got this original letter, he's thinking, right, I'm in here. He's like, it's the soundest girl in the world. Once he finds out it's a 47-year-old mum of 3, he's like, yeah, it's such a lovely gesture. Thank you, Kirsty. I really appreciate it, the effort you've gone to. I mean, am I wrong in thinking that when I first read that article, Dan was just looking for his hole?
No, I don't think so. I think that's a fair assumption. And also, the easiest thing in the world would have been for Dan to go on the fucking website and order himself a new provisional license. You know what I mean? Come on. And
I think it's quite easy.
Yeah. And then the other thing is that she's literally, his address is obviously on his license, right? I think your address is on your British license.
So to be fair, he's got home, he's lost his license. He's probably waited like a week, and you know what it's like. You come back from holiday, you think, right, I need to get that sorted. Then he's got that in the post from this letter from this girl saying, Kirsty, I found it outside a bar in Magaluf. He's got to be thinking, right, there's a good chance this bird's tidy. I didn't get a ride in Magaluf.
I mean, is there a good chance?
Let's put out an appeal. Because if she sent it back, I don't know. But you're not thinking, like, he's maybe thinking.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd understand if it was if he'd lost his license on Bondi Beach in Sydney, or somewhere like that, like the beach in Rio. It's fucking Magaluf. Anybody could have found it.
Let me track that back. She has obviously found his license. She's seen his photo. She's obviously thought, right, if he's looks like Herman Munster, I'm not going to send this back. She's obviously, in his mind, she's obviously thought, he's quite tidy. You know what? I'll do the right thing and send this back. So she has sent it back. So he's thinking, she's obviously thought I'm a bit of all right. So I'm going to put out an appeal to find this girl, and maybe it'll end up like an episode of Blind Date. We'll get married and, have babies, and it could be the game of life. But as it turns out, it's a 47 mama 3, and he's fucking gutted, I bet.
I bet he is gutted. I mean, you would think that at the age of 21 he'd have a full driving licence. Then he could have driven up to Glasgow and thanked Kirsty in person. I don't know. I mean, I suspect that you've maybe given this maybe a wee bit too much thought, perhaps, or maybe it's just the romantic that I know resides within you. There, it's just you've saw some saga there.
I see. So it's just an innocuous story about somebody returning a driving license.
I don't know that you do meet people who just like to do a good deed. You know what I mean? Kirsty just thought, I can fling this in the post when I get back. I'm sure that he'll be annoyed that he's lost it, I'll send it back to him. Obviously, neither party realising that you can apply for a replacement licence if you lose one. And I do agree with you. Dan's probably thought, aye. He's just spent a week in Magaluf. Maybe he's not got his hole, as you've said. He might be the first person ever to go to Magaluf and not get his hole. But regardless, he's seen an opportunity, and it's not been what he thought it was going to be.
You ever been to Magaluf?
I don't think I need to go to Magaluf. I've watched enough. I've watched enough Brits abroad. I have been to Malia in Crete, which apparently shares quite a lot of the same DNA. In fact, I think the In-Betweeners movie, is filmed in Malia. You know, the one when they go on holiday? It's Malia. I wasn't staying in Malia. I was staying in Ice Nikolaos, which was a nicer part, just up the roads with my family. But I got in with a bad crowd, and we had a night out in Malia. So, and there's a reason why people call it Shagaloof, Nicky. You know, I didn't invent that nickname. So
yeah, I know. No.
He's probably the first person ever to go there and not get his balls out.
But we don't know he did get his balls out. I've just said that because I'm presuming. I'm sure he did.
I am convinced by what you said that he did not get his balls out in Magaluf.
Yeah, let's say he didn't get his balls out. And if you got an issue with that, get in touch with the podcast, cultureswally@gmail.com, and we will read out your claim.
Yeah. Let us know what you think. Do you think Dan got his Nat King in Magaluf or not?
Yeah. How many fantasy birds you shagged in Magaluf, Dan? Okay then, Greg. Have you got anything else this week that you'd like to cover? No?
Nope. That's all I've got this week.
Okay. Well, before we go on to what we're going to be talking about today, normally I would say let's have a little word from our sponsors. And we do, because we're going to talk about our sponsors, Doric Skateboards, which is a skateboard brand created by Gary Kemp, whose main focus is to explore the people and culture of Aberdeen and the northeast of Scotland to create designs that reflect life in that area. Doric Skateboards screen print their own decks in their studio by Gary's fair hand, and they have produced some amazing decks over the years, including an Annie Lennox inspired board, a Robert the Bruce deck, a Plenty of Pop deck inspired by the old Bonnecord trucks that used to drive around Aberdeen, delivering fizzy drinks. And Doric Skateboards also replicate these amazing designs onto their clothing on 100% organic cotton tees, hoodies and sweatshirts, and you can fill your boots on stickers, pin badges and beanies too. Gary regularly collaborates with local artists to ensure he brings the latest designs to the market, but always with a Doric twist, including the new Northfield Tower design, which you will be able to find on doricskateboards.com and on Instagram at Doric Skateboards. And we are delighted to be able to offer you 15% off as listeners to this podcast. All you need to do is head to doricskateboards.com and have a look at the amazing decks, stickers, badges, hoodies and tees on offer. All you have to do is enter the promo code SWALLY, and that's SWALLY, same as the name of this podcast, all uppercase as well, and avail your 15% off offer. That's doricskateboards.com.
I enjoyed, did you see Gary's post the other day? He was, I think it was on his Instagram stories, and he did a wee video in his studio, salon, I'm not sure what you would call it, workspace.
Studio.
And he obviously got, it was a product that he's working on, and he dubbed over one of Donald Trump's speeches where he's saying, when Trump's saying it's going well, we've still got a lot to do. It just, I can't remember what I'd heard that Trump speech before, but I can't remember what it was in relation to. But it just made me laugh that Gary was exploiting Donald's nonsense for a cheeky little Instagram video.
Oh, very good. Yeah. Okay, Greg, so it was your choice of what we're going to be talking about today on the Culture Swally, so why don't you tell us what we're going to be talking about today?
So, I didn't know anything about this film, I never heard of it, but after we did Scott Squad last week, and I was looking at the cast to see what else they'd been in, what else they'd done. So I didn't know very many of them. Obviously I knew Jack Docherty, I knew Grado, but the other actors I didn't know an awful lot about. So I was looking up Jordan Young, who plays PC McLaren, and this film came up on his IMDb. So the film that I chose this week is the 2013 film For Those in Peril. It stars George MacKay, the aforementioned Jordan Young, and Kate Dickie. It tells the story of Aaron, the young sole survivor of the sinking of a community fishing boat that claimed the life of his older brother, Michael, and those of the other men on the boat. Aaron, now severely traumatised, is being pariahed by the community as he and his mum, played by Kate Dickie, try to come to terms with the tragedy. So I think that you also had never heard of this film, even though we've had George MacKay in the podcast before. When we did Sunshine on Leith, he plays the lead in that. I think one of us said that the most Scottish thing about George MacKay is his second name, and I think that's true of this film as well. His Scottish accent hasn't really improved. But was this the first time that you'd come across it?
Yes, first time I'd come across it. And never really heard of it until you brought it up on the last episode. Yeah, I did wonder when I was watching this film, but wow, it made quite an impact on me. There's not a lot of story in this film, and there's not a lot that happens, but my God, the atmosphere dripping throughout this is just incredible. As I say, there's not a huge amount of plot, but I love the mixture of kind of home movies and news inserts, and it's a trick that I think Shane Meadows has used in like Dead Man's Shoes, and it works just as effectively here with like the news coverage and the voiceovers from the townsfolk. And it's such a wonderful kind of gripping story. I'll be honest, like maybe 10 minutes in, I was thinking, oh God, can I be arsed with this? But then as it went on, it got me gripped. And I think it was because of the performances by George MacKay, who is phenomenal in this, and Kate Dickie, who, oh my God, she's incredible in this film. But it just kind of kept me going. And then until the ending, which we will talk about later, but my God, that made such an impact in me. And I have to admit, like a couple of days later, watching this film, it still kind of stuck with me. I was still thinking about it because, wow, what a film.
It's a powerful film. I remember I watched, maybe last year, I watched the Florence Pugh movie Midsommar. It's a sort of kind of Wicker Man-y film.
Yeah.
And it's quite long. There are some pretty disturbing moments in it. And all the way through the film, I was just thinking, I need to get to the end of this film. It needs to finish soon. I got to get the end of it. You know what I mean? Because Midsommar is quite long. This movie isn't particularly long by comparison. But the thing is, like, when they got to the end of the film, I was kind of relieved. And I was quite surprised, to your point, that it sort of stayed with me for quite a long time after I watched it. You know what I mean? I found myself kind of thinking about scenes in the film, moments in the film, the themes of the film. And this has had quite a similar impact on me to that movie. Like, I mean, the film itself, before you and I started recording, we were talking about the new series of Black Mirror. You know, like, this essentially could be, because of the ending, it could be an episode of Black Mirror. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
essentially.
you're right. Yeah.
Or something like that, you know, a sort of story with that you think is one thing that turns out to be something completely different in the last few minutes. Yeah, I mean, it's again, like, when I watching the movie, I wasn't really enjoying it that much, if I'm honest. But I've watched it twice. I enjoyed it more the second time, and I've and not just because we're covering it in the podcast, but I've been thinking about it sort of kind of constantly since I watched it on Wednesday night.
No, I think I'll agree. I watched it twice as well, and I'll be honest, the first time I watched it, maybe the first half hour, I'm like, okay, this is a bit meh. And then it started to build up. I think I can probably put the point on it when Michael Smiley turns up. That's when kind of started to get going for me, and I enjoyed it, but then the ending just kind of blew me away. And then watching it the second time, I enjoyed it so much more. So you're right. And I think it's so clever the way that the this film is done and directed, because, as I said, in the earlier part, there's not a lot of storyline, really. It's about a guy who's lost his brother on a boat on a fishing trip, and that's kind of it. But there's so much more goes with it, and it's about the impact. It's about grief, and it's about loss. And, I think that's unfortunately something that a lot of us have had to deal with. Yeah. And we can all kind of relate to, not as much as the character here, but I think there's a lot of impactfulness here, and kind of the over kind of the voiceovers of the townsfolk that you never see. That's so impactful. When a boat goes down, the families all respect the ones that's lost. No one comes ashore.
Those voiceovers, they don't sound like it's actors. It sounds, I thought for a moment that he's maybe just, because, the film is, it's filmed in Gordon in sort of southern Aberdeenshire. And then, all up the northeast, there's a lot of towns and villages that historically that relied on fishing. It was the industry. You know what I mean? The boats going out, fish factories, fish merchants and stuff. So there's a lot of communities in Aberdeenshire that historically have survived from the fishing industry, and unfortunately, most of these communities have been affected by one of the fishing boats being lost at sea. So I thought maybe he had used testimonials by people from these communities. Because those voiceovers that you're talking about, they don't sound like they're being delivered by actors. They sound incredibly authentic. We know the way they're talking about the effect on such a community, the loss of a fishing boat, is, and the loss of kind of young men from the community or whatever. You know what I mean?
Been no trace of the boat since it set out from the
It depends on the survivor's explanation. What happened? If he could explain why did he survive and they didn't.
Search and rescue teams found no sign of the...
You think to yourself, there's two brothers in that boat, maybe there should have been an effort to save each other, but yet only one survived.
Oh yeah, I mean, the one that impacts me the most is the guy that says, if you're out there and something's going to happen, it's going to happen. If it's going to tick you, it'll tick you. And that's so much of a kind of, wow, that's what the people think. You're going out in these fishing boats and risking your life to catch fish. And that's what these people do effectively, the fishermen.
Yeah. I mean, I've met a couple of guys when I lived in Aberdeenshire as a teenager. I spoke to a couple of guys who were fishermen, and I remember one thing that one guy said to me once that really struck me was, if we never wear a life jacket, because if the ship goes down and you fall in the North Sea, you're never going to get rescued in time. So you're better just to drown, because freezing to death is much worse. You know what I mean? But the way these guys are, they tell me these things so matter of fact, and I'm like an impressionable 18-year-old, and I'm like, oh my god, this sounds fucking horrendous. But these are guys that have lived and worked in that industry their whole lives, and just a very matter of fact about it.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like, to touch on what you said before, the themes of grief in this film, obviously you mentioned you and I fairly recently have individually experienced a loss and grief, and I think the situation with the film is it's traumatic grief. Aaron has been there at the time of losing his brother, but it's also the sort of shared experience of grief from the community. So Kate Dickie plays the mother who has lost a son. Jane Burley plays Jane, who we learn was the long-term girlfriend of Michael, Aaron's brother, and they were supposed to get engaged and everything, and she's sort of dealing with it in her way. But Aaron's, if the way the path the film takes you on is, you think that Aaron's trauma is leading him to a story that his mother used to tell him and his brother when they were little boys, about a sort of devil fish out there in the sea, and when it swallows you up, everyone's still alive in there and everything else, and he is determined to try and find his brother. But when he first starts talking about finding his brother, I was under the impression that he just wanted to find the body of his brother and bring him back and have closure in that sense. But as the film goes on, this sort of fantastical, what seems like a sort of fantasy of Aaron's starts to more and more come to the fore. And I wasn't quite sure, I thought the film was just about the sort of collapse of Aaron as a result of his trauma. But what did you think when that element of the story started to come up?
I think I originally thought that Aaron was obviously kind of suffering from PTSD of the whatever had happened on the boat, and we never find out what happened on that boat, which I kind of like about the film. Who knows whatever went on? I thought he was a deeply troubled individual that was suffering from PTSD. But as the film goes on, you find out, I think he's always had kind of issues in a way. As it develops, Michael, his brother, who he evidently idolized, found him an embarrassment. And it's kind of earlier, it's teased when Michael Smiley's character, Frank, says to him, your brother thought you were a fucking embarrassment. But later on, Michael literally says those words in a kind of flashback home video that he was embarrassed by. And I think even at the end, which we will come back to, the look on Michael's face when he kind of wakes up next to Aaron is almost like, oh, fuck. I think Aaron he had other issues before this happened. And the home video kind of clips of him not getting up off the sofa, and he had some sort of issue. And I think that was what Michael maybe just tolerated because his mum made him. And I do wonder if this just exacerbated it, that this trauma just kind of brought it to the fore. And he's a very troubled individual, and it's such a shame for him.
Well, the thing is, the start of the film, to your earlier point, he does, Michael does seem to be in a bit of a pedestal in Aaron's mind. And then I think Michael Smiley's character who says, something like your brother wasn't who you thought he was, or he wasn't all he was cracked up to be, or something like that. And then, the whole sort of first, maybe even half of the film up until that scene between George MacKay and Michael Smiley. Michael seems like the ideal big brother. You know what I mean? Looking out for his little brother. He's got him a job on the boat. You see him and Jane, the three of them together having a laugh and everything else. And then after that scene, in those flashback moments, you start to see elements of where Michael's been impatient with his brother. You know what I mean? And to your point, Aaron does seem to have always been a bit unusual, a bit eccentric, and Michael is quite intolerant of it in those later scenes. And I thought that was quite a strange sort of direction that the narrative takes, because regardless of what we learn about Michael not being this amazing big brother that he's been built up to be in the first half of the film, Aaron is still determined to find him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sort of kind of warts and all, Aaron's still determined to find his brother.
Yeah, but then are we presumed to establish that Aaron obviously has some maybe form of autism, and it can't kind of maybe correlate that his big brother didn't like him in that way? I mean, it's his big brother who he obviously idolized, and then they've gone out to sea. His big brother's got him this job, who you kind of find out later on that he didn't really want to give him this job, but and his first day out in sea, the boat, whatever happens, and we never know what happens, and Aaron is the only survivor. So it's a bit of guilt, but also maybe a little bit of, I don't know, he's still idolizes his big brother.
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, the scenes where there's kind of sort of flashbacks to them as little boys playing hide and seek, and Michael's in the wardrobe, and then sort of later on in the film, that sort of third act when Aaron he seems to have completely collapsed sort of mentally, when he's sort of smashing the wardrobe up trying to find his brother. And it's sort of, I don't know if it's a bit of a flaw with the narrative, or if I'm just not sort of smart enough to to be able to, I don't know, I'm not sure, but it's difficult to tell. Certainly when the scene that you mentioned when Michael's trying to get Aaron to move off the sofa, that's does suggest that maybe Michael has always had some sort of mental illness, whether it's autism or he's just been a bit eccentric or whatever else. It's kind of strange, but I mean, the whole way the film's paced is, with the constant sort of flashbacks, the constant voiceovers, like the scenes with Aaron and the young guys on the island, this sort of straight, it's kind of weird the way they fit into it all. When we first meet them, they're hunting rabbits with fucking fireworks and sticks, like the fucking worst feral fucking cunts that you'd ever come across in your life.
Yeah.
I noticed John there from Ned's in a kind of crucial role. And then later on, it sort of goes to this sort of night camera view of them in a bothy, like wrestling. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, I don't really understand what's going on here. And what's the actor called? Connor McLachlan, who played John in Ned's, who is the sort of ringleader here. It's just, I mean, all that is kind of weird. I'm not really sure what those scenes serve in the story, other than he does say, because he sort of, it starts off like the sort of interested but with a degree of sympathy to Aaron, the fact that he's the sole survivor of this horrible shipping disaster, and then they're sort of interested in what's happened. They want him to tell, but do you remember what happened? And then it sort of turns in that later scene when it's like, well, you used to get your brother to batter fuck out of me. Do you remember that? But it was sort of later on in the film when this, I don't know, those sort of scenes just, I wasn't quite sure what purpose they served, unless it was to highlight the fact that Aaron's a bit, Aaron might be mentally ill or whatever,
Yeah, but is that the whole point? Because Aaron obviously is kind of swayed by them, because it's just after he's built his raft and then he's walking down the road and then they shout him.
Yeah.
And he's quite easily swayed to go back to theirs. And then they ask him about what happened. And he's like, I don't know. Like, I don't remember. And then all of a sudden, he's topless wrestling an 11-year-old. And like, what the fuck is going on here? And then he's got him in a chokehold.
Yeah.
Which you're like, okay, I really don't understand what's happening here. And you get the line, get off him, you pedo.
Yeah.
And but they've encouraged this. They've obviously set this up, this kind of topless wrestling debacle. Then, it comes out kind of like, well, what is this all about? And obviously, I think Aaron is kind of mentally ill, and they're just kind of pushing him towards this. They know, I don't know, they want to find out what's happened, but no one ever finds out.
That's the thing, the whole... I think probably the most powerful scene in the film is the one when Aaron goes to the pub to have a conversation with the father of one of the other men,
Davey.
Yeah, Davey, who was lost in the boat. And, everybody's sort of looking for kind of closure on what happened. How could one young guy, the most inexperienced of all the guys on the boat, how could he survive and the rest of the fishermen didn't make it? And the community's still reeling, and this guy's like, Aaron asks him, he's so determined to try and get back out to sea, to try and find some trace of his brother, and Davy's dad says to him, you've not once asked how me and my wife are doing, He said, and he goes on to say how he knows that everybody had concerns about taking Aaron along on the shipping trip, on the fishing trip. But like that scene, and the way it starts off quite sort of sympathetic. And Davy's dad, it seems, is he's open and he's willing to have a conversation with this boy who the rest of the community has got severe reservations about, and there's gossip and rumours and speculation about. And then when he finds out the reason for the conversation, and it's not like he didn't flip the table over, but it's it's a really powerful performance in the sense that it just sort of builds in the more he says, the more he sort of lets that frustration that's building come into his performance and stuff. And I think in that scene, I'm not sure who the actor is, but I think he fucking acts George MacKay right off the fucking screen. He's absolutely fantastic as the grieving father.
I remember him saying to me, he didn't think you were right for the boat. Said having someone like you out there was dangerous. Why do you think he'd say that, eh?
I don't know.
Eh?
I don't know.
You don't know. Well, maybe you can tell me why I'll never see my boy again. Why I'll never get a chance to even put him in the ground. Yet here you are, large as life, asking if you can come onto my boat. Hmm?
You don't know you'll never see him again.
What did you say? What the fuck did you say? Easy. Keep him the fuck away from me.
I think you better leave.
Oh, it's amazing. But then do you think that Aaron knew what he was saying? Again, that links back to, is it kind of artistic or is it trauma? Like he's kind of blinkered by this. Just his one vision is to see his brother again. And he's convinced his brother is alive. So he's just completely blinkered by that. And when he doesn't even realise that Davy's son, John, had died on that boat. And it kind of comes as like a total shock to him. Like, oh, okay. And when he says, John said you were dangerous. Like, so again, that links into everyone always kind of knew that there was something up with Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it sort of speaks to this, again, this sort of small community. Everybody knows each other. Everybody knows, the ones to watch, I guess. That is one way of putting it. But, obviously this kid's grown up in this community and he's always been a bit unusual in his peer group. And the older he's gotten, the more people's attention his unusualness has sort of come to, Yeah, it's and what I think the film does well is there's a real kind of claustrophobia about it because Aaron is the character that we spend the most time with. There are some scenes with Kate Dickie when she's at work and she's talking to her colleagues, and there's we see a scene with Jane teaching the nursery kids and things, but for the most part we're with Aaron most of the time. And because the community is so small, there's sort of nowhere he can go, unless he's sort of wading out into the North Sea or he's in the rock pools or that sort of swimming pool that him and Jane go to about midway through the film when they go swimming. They can sort of break into what is that place they break into? I took it to be like the kind of community swimming pool, but I'm not so sure.
Well, that's what I took it to be, a swimming pool. Was there any point in the film you thought that him and Jane were going to end up shagging?
Well, that point, because, initially she seems to be getting something out of spending time with him, and he seems quite relaxed with her. They talk sort of fondly about Michael to some extent. They have that moment when they break into the swimming pool. And then the way it sort of turns, where she doesn't, when we get that great scene with Michael Smiley as Jane's father, I couldn't really understand why it swung, why Jane suddenly went from seemingly to be getting something out of spending time with him to not want to spend any time with him at all. You know what I mean?
Well, he tried to kind of grab
but before that, when Michael Smiley says she doesn't want to spend any time with you and all that,
I took that as him saying that, because in a previous scene he says to Jane, you don't want to be spending time with him, why are you hanging out with him? And then I took that as him saying that to Aaron without her permission, effectively.
Well, that's what I thought at first too, but then after that whole sort of interaction between them, and Jane sort of saves the day and takes Aaron out and they walk along the front together, and she says to him, like, I don't think we should spend so much time together after that moment. And because I thought, well, was her dad speaking for her, or did she feel that way? And she'd had a conversation with her dad, and he's just passed it on to Aaron. It wasn't very clear, but yeah, I did think that I thought the story was going to take a bit of a different turn. I mean, really, I thought the film up until the last sort of half an hour, I really thought the film was just a sort of study in grief and trauma and the effects on a community that sort of thing can have. I didn't really realise the direction that the film was going in until maybe about 10 minutes from the end. I really thought the ending of the film would be Aaron getting taken away by Brian McCarthy to psychiatric hospital somewhere, or he would end up sort of dying looking for his brother in the sea.
Well, I can't wait to speak about the ending with you. But let's do a quick recap in terms of the actors. So George MacKay, he had 3 films come out on the same weekend in the UK. So it was Sunshine on Leith, For Those in Peril, and a film called How I Live. So quite a weekend for George MacKay. And obviously we haven't watched How I Live, but in terms of Sunshine on Leith or For Those in Peril, how do you feel he fared?
Well, I mean, the listeners can go back and listen to the Sunshine on Leith episode. I mean, I didn't really enjoy him in Sunshine on Leith. I did enjoy him in this. It's a very intense performance, and he's great. He's great at playing the sort of psychologically crumbling Aaron. I've not seen How I Live Now, but I did see him in Sam Mendes' film 1917, set in the First World War, after I saw Sunshine on Leith, and I thought he was very good in it. His Scottish accent's not great, really, in this or in Sunshine on Leith. But so I did wonder, I wonder why George MacKay, because he was born in Hammersmith in London. Why is he getting picked for all these sort of performances that require a Scottish accent? Well,
the director and writer of this, Paul Wright, he grew up in a small town on the east coast of Fife. And a lot of this film is based on his stories of when he was young and he heard about this growing up with this sea monster. He originally wanted to cast local actors for this film, and you see that in a lot of the other actors, but George MacKay sent in a self-tape because he wanted to audition for this. So Paul took him in for an audition. He was still very sceptical of, I don't know what an English actor, but they did a full day of improv, and apparently Paul was like, okay, I'm sold. I'm going to, cast you. And to be fair, I think he is good in the role, but I agree, his accent, much like on Sunshine on Leith, is, debatable. Especially when he's acting with what feels like an entirely Scottish company. You got Brian McCarthy, Kate Dickie, the young guys, shockingly all appear to come from Glasgow, but yet living in this northeastern fishing community. Well, I watched the interview, and George says that he kept up his Scottish accent in between takes. Because he didn't want to go out of it, and it was so easy because most of the cast and crew were Scottish, but he didn't want to do it all the time because it would feel like he was taking the piss. Right. But I agree with you. With actors like Kate Dickie and Brian McCarthy, and with a pretty predominant Scottish cast, you're gonna, he does struggle. Jane Burley, who also isn't Scottish, I thought her accent was very good. Yeah, she was very good. Very true to life. So in terms of cast, I mean, I guess next we come to Kate Dickie as Aaron's mum, Kathy. Yeah, she's fantastic. I mean, it's, for me, this is her film. Although she's not got the screen time that George MacKay has. I mean, she's absolutely. I think probably the biggest thing we've had Kate Dickie in has been Red Road, and in Red Road she's playing a sort of similar bereaved character. Only the difference is in this one she still has her son left, whereas in Red Road she's lost her husband and her child. Yeah, she's absolutely fantastic in it. She's great. The scene that and it's not that she's not great in it, because she's fantastic in it, but it really had me sort of not squirming but tense, was the scene in the karaoke when someone, and it was kind of weird the way the whole scene's set up. Somebody has volunteered her to sing a song. She's not been quite
as pariahed as Aaron, but you get that feeling that there's still because he's come back and she's looking after him, there's still a bit of animosity toward her, but not to the same extent. And somebody's put in a karaoke request for her to go up and sing. I mean, it seems like quite a cruel thing to do to someone who's grieving the loss of a child, to volunteer them to sing karaoke. But what's even more unbelievable is that she wouldn't just say, I'm not fucking singing, fuck off. That she's felt sort of duty bound to get up and make it through a couple of verses of the First Time I Ever Saw Your Face.
But then to go up and say, I dedicate this to my two boys.
Exactly. It was just
when
like,
I didn't know I was going to sing this, and delivers one of the worst karaoke performances I've ever seen. No offence to Kate Dickie, a masterful performance in this film, and maybe it's done purposely because it's a grieving mother, but wow.
It's an odd moment in the film. Well, it's an odd moment in a film that's sort of peppered with odd moments. You know,
is it just to show that the mother, how much she loves her sons, as in sons? Because obviously people have a lot of people in the town are upset about Aaron, and she's trying to convey to the town that she is still a loving mother of two sons.
Yeah, I think so. You know, there's maybe an element that she wants to remind people that as odd and difficult as the situation with Aaron is, he's still her son, and she still is going to support him, regardless of how odd. You know, there's the moment when she works in a fish processing facility, and she goes to ask her boss if there's a job for Aaron, even like an unpaid job, just so she can keep him close by and keep an eye on him, because when she's at work, she obviously knows that he's going through severe trauma, worse than hers, because she wasn't on the ship, and she needs to keep him close by, and her boss is like, it's not the right place for him.
Watching this for the first time, I wrote in my notes, I could have done with more Michael Smiley. Mm-hmm. And then rewatching it for the second time, I pick up on that he'd hit his wife once so much that she didn't talk for a year.
Yeah.
And then rewatching it again, he's quite a violent guy, and he's quite a violent and scary man, but still, I wouldn't have minded seeing more of him on the screen. He's fantastic in this. I mean, I know him as you probably do, as Tyres from Spaced. And he's been in so many things. Like, he was in Luther for a while, and like, he's been in so many things. But in this, he is a very violent and scary man, but you're kind of on his side against Aaron, because he's just trying to protect his daughter, really.
You know everything, eh? Do you know that she sees you as a fucking embarrassment? She can't stand being around you. Did you know that?
She's going to help me find Michael.
You what?
She's going to help me find my brother.
Oh, man. You're a piece of work, aren't you? I know you're out there, but you are wired to the fucking moon, big lad, aren't you? You see, you forget. I knew your brother, and he hate to say this, but he wasn't everything you thought he was. Oh, I knew his place better than you did. But he was a wee fucking funny as well.
I think that's true of a couple of the actors in this. I mean, like Kate Dickie, I'd like to have seen more of. Brian McCarthy, I'd like to have seen more of as well, because Brian McCarthy's a fantastic actor.
Yeah.
And like I feel like he's really underused in this, in much the same way that Michael Smiley is as well.
Hugely.
Hugely. There's an element, to your point, where we get to understand a bit more about him, and what was his relationship like with Michael, because you're sort of led to believe that Michael and Jane have known each other since they were little kids. There's that moment when Aaron talks about them getting married in the garden when they were wee, and she's got like a tablecloth in her head as a sort of veil and everything else. And then, like I mentioned earlier, there's that point where Michael Smiley says, your brother wasn't everything that you thought he was. So it'd be good been good to explore a bit more of that relationship and not to understand, you know, what was it about Michael that Jane's dad couldn't get on with, or, you know, or vice versa, whatever else. You know, I think, you know, if you're someone like Paul Wright, and he's not got an awful lot of directing credits under his belt, but if you can get a cast that's got people like Kate Dickie, Michael Smiley, and Brian McCarty in it, why wouldn't you just, like, fill the movie with scenes with those actors in it? You know what I mean? I just don't really get it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. I think they are wasted talents in terms of that, because they are just tremendous. Smiley, the 2 scenes he's in, he just commands the screen. And he's so good. And the way he turns on Aaron, just, he's so nice to him, and then just fucking turns. And, you know, your brother was a fucking fanny as well. Like, it's just so good the way that he delivers that. And when Aaron breaks into the house, doesn't break in, but kind of storms in, and Smiley just batters him. It's so kind of fly on the wall documentary the way it's filmed, but you're so invested in it. And fantastic scenes. Okay, so we've covered a lot of kind of the film, but we haven't really covered the ending in terms of what happens there. So I think it's probably time we take that on board. So we come to terms that Aaron is missing his brother, but he has to go and solve something. He tries to make a makeshift raft, and it doesn't work. But eventually he takes a rowing boat out and cuts himself with a knife.
That was hard to watch.
He cuts gills into himself to make himself into a fish. And very hard to watch. That those scenes, I admit I had to kind of look away in a bit.
Yeah. The ending, I'm still a bit conflicted how I feel about the ending. Part of me thinks that it's fucking great. You know what I mean? It's because, but then another part of me thinks, I'm not sure that maybe it does. Maybe I'm just not clever enough to see it, but I don't know if it really fits the rest of the sort of style of the film. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe I'm not clever enough. Maybe I'm not intellectual enough to appreciate it.
Yeah, spoiler alert. If you haven't seen it, obviously switch off now. But if you're listening this far, I presume you've seen the film. So the whole premise of the film is that Aaron is fighting this sea monster that his mother has told him about. And towards the end, Aaron goes out and on a rowing boat on his own, cuts his neck with gills and jumps into the sea. And then all of a sudden, his mother turns up on the beach and there's this big red monster on the beach. Now, genuinely, the first time I watched it, I was like, what the fuck is this? And it sat with me for about 20 minutes and I was like, actually, that is fucking genius, because the whole premise of the film is building up to this monster, and they rewatching it again, there's so many points during the film that George MacKay's character mentions about this monster, and then before the end scene, you know, he makes Kate Dickie's character, his mum, tell him the story about this monster. And it's about this monster that kind of took over this village, and the only way to salvage things was this one young boy had to go in and salvage it and save the whole village from the monster. And that's the whole thing. That's what it is that George MacKay's character has done. Saved everyone from the monster. A brave young boy comes to the rescue. He jumps into the ocean, is transformed into a fish, which is why he's cut his gills, and swims down to the devil's lair to free his prisoners.
But you know what I thought initially? So just before Kate Dickie's character runs down to the beach, there is a flashback to Aaron and Michael on the jetty with goldfish in goldfish bags. And there's that myth that goldfish will grow to match their environment. I thought that one of them had chucked a goldfish in the sea, and the goldfish and the fish that washes up on the beach is one of the goldfish. And then obviously we see that scene of Aaron and Michael sitting on something, I don't know, like a raft or something like that. Aaron having rescued his brother from the belly of the beast. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I didn't dislike the ending because I've been thinking about it sort of constantly since watching the film. But I'm still not. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not. I like the whole sort of fable element to the film, but the fact that the film up until that point just seems like a real study of trauma and grief. Doesn't feel like it's leading up to this sort of romantic, fantastical ending at all.
Is this the sea creature? Is this Aaron lying there like he's taken his own life because the guilt of what he's done, and we never know what happened on that boat. Whatever is done is one like last ditch effort of like to find like what happened to his brother and trying to find the light of kind of heaven. But the fact he's cutting his neck with gills and jumping into the ocean, there's something there. Something happened on that boat that we will never know about, and I kind of love that we never know what happened on there. Did Aaron murder them all? Like, we'll never know.
The boat was attacked by a massive goldfish.
Well, yeah, apparently, yeah.
I don't know. Like, I'm not. The fact that it's a really thought-provoking ending is kind of enough for me. You know what I mean? Like, I enjoyed it, Yeah. I enjoyed it. Like, can't quite get how he marries everything that's come before to the way the film ends. But I think he could have maybe been a bit slicker and smoother about it. But otherwise, I like the fact that it sort of ends that way, and all of Aaron's strange, everything that's weird about Aaron is sort of borne out, and he's sort of what's what I'm looking for, he's sort of emancipated at the end of the film from his odd behaviour. So it turns out that he was right the whole time.
So do you think he was struggling with PTSD or just mentally ill?
I don't know. I mean, the ending would suggest that it was neither. It was just wanted to get his brother. It was revenge, even that he was motivated by, but the fact that he couldn't convince everybody else of the reality of what had happened. But it's only his brother that we see him with. So it did make me wonder if the ending is perhaps metaphorical for something else. I mean, that you mentioned earlier, was the big fish actually Aaron being washed up on the shore, and Kate Dickie's actually running to her son, and maybe the scene with Aaron and Michael is perhaps some sort of heavenly sort of scene, perhaps, or suggestion. But I don't know. The fact that it's open to interpretation is pretty cool as well.
But yeah, as like when they wake up, Michael looks quite annoyed to be kind of like, oh, for fuck's sake, I've got to stick with you for eternity.
This fucking ginger cunt again. I did notice that George MacKay's skin is absolutely appalling in this film. Did you notice?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did notice that. Yeah.
How old was he when
was that on purpose? That must have been on purpose, though. Sure.
What age is George MacKay? Let's have a look. He was born 1992, so he'd have been 21 in this film. So you'd have thought he might have 21. Yeah. You'd have thought he might have grown out of the old zits by this point. Maybe not. Maybe it's makeup, to your point. Maybe he's playing younger. Any other points do you want to bring up, or is it time to put For Those in Peril through the Swally Awards?
I think we should put For Those in Peril through the Swally Awards. What's up first, Greg?
Okay, first award, the James Cosmo Award for being in everything Scottish.
I've got Brian McCarty.
I had Dickie, because Dickie does feel quite prolific, but either, I think.
Yeah.
Either. Okay. Either are strong.
I'll go with either.
Okay. The Bobby the Barman Award for the best pub. So there's only really one pub where there's a ceilidh going on before the sun's gone down, bizarrely. But yeah.
No, well, that's the pub, the ceilidh, but then there's a pub where he goes to speak to Davy.
But there's not pass through the ceilidh to go and meet Davy, because that's the scene when Jane looks over at him and says, no? Okay.
No, it's a different scene. It's a completely different scene, a completely different pub. So there's a pub that he goes to the ceilidh in, which looks more like a dance hall.
Yeah.
And then there's a pub where he goes to go and speak to Davy in, and it does look like a nice pub, but I bet it fucking stinks of fish.
Yeah, probably.
So it's a no from me.
It's a no. Yeah, I agree. Right, next award then is the Jake McQuillan Your Teazoot Award. What did you go for here?
It's Frank throwing Aaron out the house.
Yep.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I had. Well, I've got fight with Jane's dad, but I've also got Aaron wrestles written down because it's a bit of slapping and stuff that goes on there.
Is that TC though, or
Nah, I suppose not.
is that just a little bit of naked teenage wrestling?
That shirt off, all wholesome. Good, clean, family fun. Yeah, you're probably right. Next award then, the Hugh McGregor Award for gratuitous nudity. Not really any nudity in the film.
No, there's not any. Not any proper nudity.
I've written down swimming with Jane, even though no one's got their clothes off, but Jane is in her bra and knickers.
Yeah, we will include that then. That's fine.
Okay. We got for the Francis Begbie Award for gratuitous swearing.
There's a few things, but I did go for Michael Smiley. Basically, his whole speech when he's berating Aaron, and he does say he was a wee fucking fanny as well.
Yeah.
And I quite liked that. That made me tickle. But there was a few occasions. What did you go for?
I've got that written down. I've also got the word growler written down just because you don't hear it very often. It's not really swearing, but yeah, you don't get a lot of growlers these days. Made me laugh. Well, I don't get a lot of growlers these days, put it that way. Okay, archetypal Scottish moment.
It has to be singing Loch Lomond at a karaoke.
Yeah, I mean, that is up there. I've also got written down Afternoon Kayleigh. Didn't get it anywhere else. And then the last award then is the Sean Connery Award. Who won the film for you? Kate Dickie all day long. I sort of gave it away earlier on. I think it's definitely her film.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
She's so good.
Absolutely fantastic. As a embroiled, kind of periled mother, she's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Have we ever seen anything in Kate Dickie that she hasn't been amazing?
Well, what I like about her is that she, and I don't say this in a negative way, but she is a very regular looking person. You know what I mean? You know, like she sort of, she sort of embodies and really, she sort of invests herself. I always feel that there's a bit of her when you see her, and like we've done her twice. Cut that out. We've covered her twice now. In Red Road, as mentioned earlier. She's playing a character who's grieving a traumatic loss. In this film, arguably, she's playing a character who is grieving a traumatic loss, but there's no real similarity between the performances. In Red Road, she's driven for revenge. Her character's driven by her loss for revenge on the person she holds responsible. Whereas in this, she's, the character's driven by just trying to save her surviving son from his own trauma. You know what I mean? And she's absolutely outstanding in it. She's so good.
Yeah, you're completely right. I mean, Kate Dickie is just a phenomenal actress, and yeah, she's brilliant with it. Just heartbreaking, actually, at times. Yeah. Absolutely heartbreaking. And the way she speaks to Aaron at times when she's trying to convey to him that he has to maybe go in somewhere, and it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, she's fantastic. So my choice was For Those in Peril, which means it comes back to you. What are we watching for the next episode of the Culture Swally?
Well, I think we need to look at something a little bit lighter on the next episode.
Fuck for that.
So I'd like to look at a film that I have not seen in years since it first came out. But I remember I really enjoyed it when I first watched it. So, starring James Lance, who is better known probably now as Trent Crimm from Ted Lasso, but he'll always be Ben from I'm Alan Partridge and Barney from The Book Group to me. And Kate Ashfield, who is probably better known as Liz, who is Sean's girlfriend from Shaun the Dead. So I'd like to look at 2001 film. And Greg, we're going to go, what was Thursday always known as in the UK or in Scotland? It was always known as...
Late night shopping.
Thank you. So yes, we're going to look at 2001's late night shopping.
Oh, late night was like, I think the shop shut at 8 o'clock. It wasn't that late.
And I always struggle to find this film anywhere, which is why we haven't done it in the Swally, but I find out someone has magically uploaded it to YouTube. So I will put this, well, I'll put it in the description of the episode if anyone wants to do their homework. But if you want to look for it on YouTube, just type in Late Night Shopping and you will find the film. Right, well, thank you very much everyone for listening. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us on cultureswally@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the socials at cultureswallypod, or on Twitter at SwallyPod, and get in touch with us at any news stories that you've seen you'd like us to cover, or anything you'd like us to cover on the podcast. And Greg, we have a wonderful website now, don't we?
Yep, we do. You can find us at cultureswally.com. You can find links to all our episodes and some essays about Scottish television and Scottish horror and one or two other things. So come and check us out over there.
Wonderful. All right. Well, you have to do some late night shopping, Greg.
Yeah, well, I'm off to watch late night shopping because it's still quite early here. So yeah, we make the most of the evening and settle down for a bit of Trent Crim and Liz off Shaun of the Dead.
Magic. Well, you can text me whilst you're watching it because I've seen it a couple of times, so you can text me your thoughts. Okay, right. Until next time then, guys.
Until next time.
One day, the devil in the ocean cursed the town. It took all the fish and all the little children into its big dirty belly. And everyone was scared and everyone was sad. And they knew that only if the devil was caught would things go back to the way they were before.